everyone. I am Justine Connor with the Paula Takacs Foundation. I'm here today interviewing Erin and Steve. Steve is a sarcoma survivor, and he'll be telling us about his story today. So let's get right into it. Steven, or do you prefer Steve or Steven?
It does not matter.
Okay. Steven, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and your family.
So my background and my family, growing up, I had two older siblings, both sisters, and my parents are in their 80s now, still alive. Then I joined the Marine Corps, met my wife. We started a family and we lived around the world, Korea, Japan, Germany. We've been literally around the world with the Marine Corps. And I mean, I guess that's the gist of it, is we've taken our family around the world and we've had a great time.
What landed you here in Charlotte?
I came to Charlotte for a job. So we had, when I was retiring from the Marine Corps, I was coming back from Germany and I had 1 year left in the Marine Corps. And during that year, I was going through working on my resume and doing job fairs and networking. And we had 3 kids in college, in the same college in North Carolina, over in Fayetteville at Methodist University. And so we decided we wanted to stay in North Carolina. And I knew that traditionally the retiring military, their first job doesn't last very long. I think it's like 3 years is about the average. So I wanted to be in a location where I would have multiple job opportunities if that first job didn't work out for longer term. So I was looking primarily at Raleigh and Charlotte, and I was going through Hiring Our Heroes corporate fellowship and got on with a small nonprofit here in the Charlotte area. And so I was going through that fellowship. They wanted to keep me on, so they hired me. And that's how we ended up here. Okay. There's a little more to that story, but we can get into that with further questions.
So before your diagnosis, what were some of your passions, hobbies, interests, or things you did outside of like work in military?
I was a CrossFitter. I was a runner. One of the most fun things I ever did was took my son to a Spartan race in the Dolomites in Italy. Stuff like that. I was a volleyball player. I was a volleyball coach. And so a lot of activities, physical activities, and being outdoors. And then just as I thought it was getting older, that I started having pain in my left hip, hamstring area, and especially noticing it after a long drive or having to sit for a long period of time. It would just feel like I needed to stretch. And the Navy doctors told me it's probably a labral tear. I eventually got them to do an MRI with contrast, and when that came back and the doctor looked at it, he said, "I don't see one, but that's probably what it is." I went through physical therapy, and of course it didn't change anything. It wasn't until after I retired that my civilian doctor sent me to Ortho Carolina. Ortho Carolina, it was actually a PA that said, "Let's look upstream, see if we can figure out what's causing this pain." So he scheduled a new MRI, but in a different location, looking more, I guess, at the pelvis. And that's when he could see something there. He called it a cyst. I guess it didn't highlight the way a solid tumor normally would. And then the next week, I think it was, we got a call from Living Cancer Institute, the Rare Complex, Dr. Anderson, wanting me to come in to talk with them and then go get a biopsy. So we went in less than a year's time from active duty Marine. I retired on the 30th of June of 2023, closed on this house and property on the 5th of July, diagnosed with cancer in August. what Dr. Anderson could see of it. And when they tried to biopsy it, they still thought it was liquid filled, tried to draw as much out as they could, and they couldn't get any out. But apparently, I guess they got enough that they could do a biopsy. And that's when it came back of chondrosarcoma. Dr. Anderson recognized that it was too complex for him to do based on what he could see from the MRI, referred me to Dr. Lewis down in Houston, Texas at MD Anderson. And we went down to see her in September and found out that the only way to save my life was to take my leg and half my hip, or half my pelvis, the whole hip. And in that conversation with Dr. Lewis, I just went mute. I couldn't even talk. Erin had to complete that discussion.
The Marine Corps spouse in me kicked in, because when you just sit there watching your spouse with a mask over his face and all you can see is the fear in his eyes, and he's shut down. We had about 6 different doctors in there, and I just said to him, I would rather have you without a leg and alive than not do this. And the doctor's telling you this is what has to happen. And so I looked at the doctor and I said, assemble the team. And so she said, okay, we will assemble the team. And we got back to the hotel. It was a very quiet ride. He still could not speak the word amputate. I had to call the children, each one in different places, locations, and tell them what was going on. I had to call his mom and dad and tell them. I had to call my parents and tell them, because he just could not deal with it. The very first thing out of my daughter's mouth was, will someone be made accountable for this in the military? Because he had been having these issues for over 2 years.
That was going to be one of my questions, how long the symptoms were happening before
I noticed them when we were still in Germany, probably about 2 years before we left, so about 2020.
Okay.
And the surgery was in 23. So for roughly 3 years, I was already having pain. By the time I finally had the surgery, my left leg had gotten to where my ankle was always swollen. I could not flex my foot up anymore because the sciatic, I guess, was just being crushed by the tumor.
He had drop foot.
The drop foot when I walked. So Dr. Lewis at MD Anderson, she was telling us there's 2 of 3 criteria that determines whether we take the leg off or not, and I had 2 of them. So that was the only option. Do you remember what they
I only
were?
remember, just because of the shock of everything, the sciatic nerve was being obstructed. I do not remember the other 2.
I remember asking her if once they got the tumor, she hadn't told us that we had to have the amputation yet. If once they got the tumor out, would my nerves recover and I'd be able to have full function of my leg? And I think that's when she said, no, here's the 3 criteria. And I think basically my leg was dying.
Got it.
Yeah.
Like there wasn't, it didn't look dead, but it was always swollen.
Yeah,
There were just so many things going wrong with it, that was the determination. So that was September when we found that out. A month later, October 12th, was when I had the surgery. I was in the hospital for 4 weeks. I got released on the birthday of the Marine Corps on the 10th of November, and we were back here by Thanksgiving. I had a couple of weeks there of outpatient PT and stuff. Everyone at MD Anderson was just amazing.
Yeah.
The doctors, the nurses, everybody.
Well, we didn't know what services were available to us with regards to the VA, the military, because it's so backed up here. The backlog is so bad that his first appointment for the military to just even go, here I am, I'm a new retiree, wasn't until December. And so when we got back in September, I called my state senator because we could not get in. I needed to know as the spouse, what do we have available to us? What kind of help can we get? Because we were reeling from this. We had just purchased this home. We were going to have to make modifications to the house. You cannot, there's very little pictures of what this surgery will look like. So we just didn't know what we didn't know. And their military liaison called me back, and I explained the whole situation, just about how long it had been and how he had been essentially blown off from the military for years, patted on the head, thrown some medication at him, and just told to stretch. That he gave me the head number of the Salisbury clinic so I could just get an appointment. And she was amazing and got us in within a week, just so that we could see what we had available to us. The VA, all I could tell him was, the only thing I could do to make this right was, I will provide you everything you need. I will provide you a gym, because his life was working out. That's what a Marine does. And, you know, his mental health, I was extremely concerned about. And it wasn't until recently that I told him that the first few months, that was my main concern, was keeping him alive mentally to fight this, to deal with this. Because if the mental goes down, I've lost the battle with him.
Yeah, you don't like give up inside.
Right. And so we, that's when I found out from the VA that it was going to take 9 months for someone to come out to the house to just look at it, to see what needed to be done. And I could not, in my mind, mentally afford to do that with him. I said, I will provide you with this. I will get the modifications done on the house. And the VA said, then you do it without our help financially. And so
that's so frustrating.
That's what we did.
Yeah.
And I raided our IRA accounts. I had never done this before, but I called my dad for help, for money, because I just needed to make sure that he was still in the fight mentally. And when we went to the amputation, I drove and he flew, because I wanted to make sure I had my SUV there. We just didn't know, like, what was his mobility going to be like? Again, you really just don't know until you go through it. And while we were gone, they started renovation on the house. They built the gym for us, just so that I could make sure that he had every rehab thing at his fingertips.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't going to be able to drive for, I don't know how long, you know. It ended up being over a year, which meant I had to drive him to and from work. I was driving him to and from 4 to 5 to 6 appointments a week.
They're not close to here.
No, they're not.
Yeah.
And his job was in Concord in downtown Charlotte. So I was running, and I had animals I had to take care of, you know. So yeah, it was
That's a lot.
a struggle.
Yeah, that's a lot to just take in all together. I want to backtrack a little bit, because obviously you have this really fit background. You were in the military. So what was kind of going through your head, or what were the emotions that came up when you had learned that you were going to lose your leg?
Well, like I said, I went mute. I didn't know what it would be like. You see amputees periodically, below knee, above knee. Hemipelvectomies you almost never see. We are quite rare. I know of a few that I've found online and through social media and whatnot. Hip dysartics are a little more frequently found. But the hemipelvectomy is it's such a brutal surgery. I didn't know what I would be left with. One of the things that Dr. Lewis made sure to do was have the plastics that was on her team take a piece of my fibula and graft it back in to attach what's left of my pelvis front and back, so that I could use a prosthesis. And so it was over a year after surgery before I was allowed to even begin the process of getting a prosthesis made, because she wanted to make sure that that bone was fully grafted back in place. And because when they got the tumor out, they found osteosarcoma was also part of my tumor. So that meant I had to go through chemo to make sure that I was completely clear. And the chemo retarded and slowed down the healing process of the bone. So that's why it took so long. So I guess the message from that is, don't give up. It's a long process, and just one day at a time. You're gonna continue. I had gotten stronger after the surgery, and then got weaker again during chemo. The phantom pain had mostly gone away before chemo, and then it all came back during chemo. So there were setbacks of chemo, and then a year later, I fell and broke that grafted fibula. So another setback. I couldn't wear my prosthesis for 3 months while that bone rehealed in there.
He was working in the hospital at his job. He was the chief of staff for a nonprofit here. He was working. He worked when he got home. He worked at the office at the beginning of chemo, and after, when I went to pick him up and he was throwing up, from chemo, they said, go ahead and just work from home. And he worked from home through chemo.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing that you could do that. Obviously, it probably wasn't easy or fun.
No.
Can you take us through, explain the surgery and then
Sure.
also some of the rehab and stuff you have to do afterwards to stand up again and just do normal daily activities?
So the surgery is, if you think about the way your pelvis is shaped with your hip down here, my tumor was kind of something like that. And so they had to take all of that out to make sure that they got the clear margins. I think she said she went right up against the colon wall.
Yes.
So the front part of my pelvis is cut, and the back part is cut, and everything in between was taken out. And then, like I said, the fibula was grafted back in, and then pieces of skin probably from my upper leg, I'm not sure, are grafted in as well. So I get weird hair patches, but the plastics team did a phenomenal job of terminating nerves, rewiring things. As time has gone on, I can now move muscles in here. I still have this, whatever the side muscles of your abs are, lateral abs, I guess. So I still have movement in all the way around, which is good, because in order to use that, I have to use my core to advance that leg. When I was first done with the surgery, I had to stay on my right side while this skin graft healed for, I want to say, a week.
Yeah, he couldn't even be on his back for even 5 minutes. And they were coming in multiple times a day with a Doppler to make sure that skin did not die, that it grafted on okay. And he was also lightly sedated for the first 4 to 5 days, because they wanted him not to move around. And they discovered that when I was there, he would want to talk. Yeah. And so I would sit on his left behind him because he was on his right side, and I would sit in the dark to just keep him calm and quiet so he could rest instead of trying to speak to me.
And then part of Dr. Lewis's team down there includes OTs and PTs. Mm-hmm. And they, maybe a week or 2 weeks, they started coming in, and the first thing was sitting up. And, I had 3 drains. So I had all these drains that had to be accommodated as well. And I was hooked up to an IV the whole time. And so I'm walking around with drains hanging off, and they started me with a regular walker. And once I could do a few laps like that, then they eventually moved me up to crutches, and they actually were the ones that introduced me to Moby legs, and I still use them today. And the occupational therapist was, having me go into the restroom to brush my teeth, show me how to give myself a sponge bath, various things that I had to relearn how to do, and just working through the pain, because it's just such a massive surgery.
Yeah.
And even today, 2.5 years later, I'm still always in pain, but it's to the point where it's more of an annoyance, unless I do too much. Standing is one of the hardest things because I only have support on my right side. So my left, my body center of gravity is here, and it wants to pull me down. So I'm starting to get scoliosis. Acupuncture helps with the phantom pain. I've seen a chiropractor before to help with my spine. And then I work out a lot. I try to get stronger and be stronger. Hang from a bar so that it kind of stretches my spine back out and straightens it back out. Stuff like that.
He did OT for 2 to 3 hours a day, every day but Sunday in the hospital. Sundays, it's pretty much a ghost town, so that was a rest day for him. But they don't let any grass grow under their feet about getting these guys ready to move on to the next step.
Yeah.
What they didn't realize was who they were dealing with. Dealing with a United States Marine whose sole job is to be fit.
Yeah.
He was constantly going, "What else you got for me?" And there were 2 times that I stepped away from the hospital to go visit a friend in Houston from the military. And the one time that I went and I wasn't there, I come back, he had been doing one-legged push-ups in PT. And I was like, man, I can't believe I missed that. But I was on the PT floor that day when I found that out, but I could hear them in the hallway talking about him because they couldn't believe that somebody was doing that 3 weeks post-op. And I just smiled to myself because I thought, you don't know this guy. He's not going to stop.
Yeah.
And so if they told him to do 10 reps, he was doing more than 10. So that he's just always been an overachiever that way. And so that's how he attacked it.
Yeah. I'm sure they loved working with you then to like throw all those things at you and you're like, yeah, what else you got for me? Well, obviously this is really hard for both of you. What was some of the hardships that you dealt with walking alongside Stephen through all this?
Number one was his mental health. I was very concerned because my feeling was if I lose him mentally, with a lot of veterans, you got veteran suicide, and I was very, very worried about that. The number 2 portion for me is we had just bought this house. We had always planned on when we retired, I was going to go back to work, and that was not going to be possible because we just didn't know like what was the situation going to be like. Yeah. But because he went mute in those appointments and he reacted the way he did, understandably, I took on everything. We have 10 acres here, so I took on dealing with 10 acres. I took on all the dealing with the construction crews, talking about all the financial stuff. I took on dealing with the VA, and the VA is notorious for being difficult to deal with. The system, I'm convinced, is designed to make people give up. And I just wasn't going to give up on this guy. And I wasn't going to give up on any kind of benefit that he has earned. He was a Marine for 28 years. He earned this, and we needed help. So for me, it was the financial. I spent a good amount of time trying to keep a roof over our heads because we still had 2 kids in college. So I was still paying for college. I was trying to keep, everyone was riding a different struggle bus. So I'm trying to keep everybody on par with how are you doing, checking up. I mean, every night when I would go back to the apartment in Texas, because I rented an apartment for the month, I would be systematically calling each child to see what they needed. And there were multiple times I'd say to my son, do I need to fly you here so you can see your dad? Or to my oldest daughter, do I need to fly home just for the weekend to give the mom a hug? Because they were all scared to death their dad was going to die. And, my parents were in ill health. Both sets of our parents are 88. And my mother was on hospice and non-ambulatory. So I needed to deal with them. I was in the process of moving them into our home, coordinating a move that way. Like there was just so many moving parts for me that I coped until I couldn't cope anymore. And for me, it was December when we got back. And I realized I was not coping very well. I was making sure everybody else was okay and holding it together. And then I just couldn't. And so I ended up having to go to counseling because I just had to let this out. I was so scared I was losing my spouse and how am I going to deal with my kids, telling them this, and they were all devastated. So yeah, it was tough.
Yeah, that's really tough. It's like not just heavy for you, Stephen, but your entire family, and everyone's kind of dealing with some emotional and then physical. It's a lot to deal with. I know you mentioned some financial strains. What were some of those things you guys went through? Because I think that's another thing people don't quite understand when you're going through a diagnosis, like all these expenses that you're about to incur.
So the renovation cost me $236,000. I got no help from it. I had to beg, borrow, and steal money, not steal, but beg and borrow my dad and raid our retirement accounts. Our retirement accounts are quite a bit lower. I then, as he was moving through into chemo, we decided we were going to put a lap pool on the property so that he can have another form of rehab to help get off the limb, get off the remaining leg, and to help him. And so I signed the contracts on the pool, and 3 weeks after I signed the contracts on the pool, he was let go from his job while he was in the hospital getting the final flush out of the chemo. And I was still on the hook for another almost $200,000 now. So there was more raiding of our retirement accounts. And that's just renovating. We then, the amount of medical bills, when he, his insurance from the post-retirement job took care of the majority of the hospital stay. But as soon as he lost that job, the VA wasn't paying for things. And so I was being hit with $20,000 and $30,000 bills at a time that I just didn't know what I was going to do. And I was robbing Peter to pay Paul to just pay the bills. And we were at that point going every 3 months back to Texas. And I 100% would do it again, because they were so top notch there that to have that many eyes on him, I would do it. But it was a strain, and that was challenging. So we, as a Marine spouse, when they are deployed and they're gone a lot, you do not tell them every little boo-boo that the kids have or every problem, every car problem. They need to be able to focus on their mission. And so you sugarcoat some of it, right? Well, that's what I was doing, is keeping the heavy stuff out of his line of sight, because he didn't need to know that. He needed to get better. He needed to rehab. And so I kept a lot of that fear and fright over, we may lose the house and I don't know what we're going to do, from him, so that he could just focus on healing. He did not need to worry about, why was the VA doing what they were doing? Why were they, not paying the bills? They were.
Did they eventually step in the future?
No. So we got 2 grab bars from them. That's all we've gotten from the VA.
For renovations.
Yeah, for renovations.
We applied for and received a
Car
adapted
grant.
Vehicle grant.
Yeah.
And so the truck that I drive now, it has a a wheelchair lift in the back of it. They provided me the wheelchair as well.
Yeah.
They gave me an electric scooter that I use all the time here. So they have helped in other areas,
Yeah.
but as far as renovations on the house, no.
Yeah, because you have to. I mean, you have to make things like adaptable so you can use
Yep.
them.
Yep.
We
can't
we
just-
couldn't. We had to take our bedroom down to the studs as well as the bathroom, because within the bedroom into the bathroom and the closets there was 5 doors.
Mm,
We again didn't know how mobile he was going to be,
Yeah.
but you couldn't even put the wheelchair couldn't fit through the doors, so we had to widen doorways. We had to make the door in from the bedroom into the bathroom, that would be the only door. All the rest where he could free flow throughout the bathroom and the closet,
With no doors.
with no doors, you know. So when we had the shower put in, we had a walk-in shower put in where we could put this, you know, his shower chair, and the construction crew didn't put that in properly, and the shower shattered while he was standing in the shower, and I was moving my parents in, and so my father-in-law had to get him out of the bathroom, out of the shower, because he was standing amongst all of this shattered glass. So there have been so many setbacks to the construction that went on,
Yeah.
you know, but yeah, we've had to do a lot of modifications to the house just to make it where he can function.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit, because I know you use your Moby legs a lot, and you have your prosthetic, and then you also use a wheelchair sometimes. Tell us about all those different things that you use to get around when you use them.
So depending upon what I'm doing, that determines what I'm going to take or use. So like daughter's graduation from college, I know I'm basically going there, sitting, and, you know, clapping. I'm just sitting there.
Yeah.
So I took my wheelchair because that is the most comfortable thing. It has the Roho cushion in it, and it's easy to move around in the place where they graduate is a big stadium, so I know the stadium is wheelchair accessible. I use my Moby legs almost all day long, unless I'm going somewhere where I'm going to be walking around. Like if I go to Lowe's or Walmart, I take my prosthetic, and that way I get some steps in.
Yeah.
I've been to the Hanger Clinic's walking school a couple times, and the biggest thing is you got to use it. Otherwise, it's never going to be like part of you. Hanger is in the process of making a new bucket for me. I had a fitting yesterday, and I should receive it June 2nd, the new bucket. So the top part of that will be replaced. The rest of it will all be the same. And hopefully then it will fit a little better and be more comfortable. It has to really squeeze down tight in order to, when I go to take a step, it has to come with me. It can't stay on the ground, otherwise it won't swing through. So it's not comfortable because it has to be so tight. And that's just part of being a hemipelvectomy.
Yeah.
And the VA paid for this too.
Yep.
The VA came through and helped with this, because it is so, I mean, the knee joint alone is $55,000.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no way we could have done
Yeah.
this. So we are very thankful that they have come through to help with that. So he has a shot at walking again.
That's good.
And the way you got in touch with us was by doing the 5K for
Yeah.
the Takacs Foundation, and I did
Yep.
I do those with the prosthesis on. We are always the very last people to finish.
Yep.
Takes us about an hour and a half to do a 5K, but it's possible. You can do it, even as a hemipelvectomy.
It's very inspiring to see you guys doing that. How long can you wear that without it, I guess, being too uncomfortable where you need to take it off?
I've worn it for a few hours at a time, just depending upon what I'm doing. So like when I do a 5K, I've probably got it on for at least 2 hours. At the end of the 5K, I feel like I've ran a marathon. just because of how much energy is expended in walking.
But we also, with these 5Ks, so we've been doing 5Ks. He wants to do one a month in the year 2026. We started in November last year. And the first one, his bucket was broken, so he crutched the entire 5K. But every 5K we've done so far, we're adding new things to our body, because the first one, I carry one of the crutches in case he needs to take the leg off. And then now I have a harness that I carry, and we now strap the crutch to my harness on the back, and I walk with him. If he has to take the leg off, we take the crutch off, we strap the leg to the back harness, and then off I go, because this is big and bulky, and it's
16.5 pounds.
And it's difficult to carry. And so we're rigging up the harness situation so he can, if he needs to, strap it to my back, and then he will just finish crutching the 5K, and I will be walking with the leg on my back.
For the record, I have never had to take it off during a 5K.
Okay. He will not do
I
it.
was going to say, that's the mental strength.
Yep.
So tell us the ones you've already done and completed, and if you have any plans to do any more in the future.
So there was a Winterfest 5K at Catawba University, I think it is. That was the first one we did this year. It got postponed a couple times due to snow and stuff. It was funny, in that one, our son went and ran it. He was a college cross country and track runner. He was finished. He did win it, but he was finished before we completed a mile.
We looked up and he was running towards us, so we high-fived him on his way out. And then he came back after he had won and found us and walked the rest of the race with us.
No.
Yeah.
In fact, he missed the ceremony, getting the plaque and the thing, because he was in the stadium watching his dad cross the line.
That was the first one. And then we did the We Love Teachers, because our oldest daughter is a high school math teacher in Union County. And she did that one too with us. And then the next one was the
Sarcoma Sucks.
Sarcoma Sucks. So those were back-to-back weekends. And then the Stomp. And we haven't done one in May because of college graduation. We've got a wedding this weekend. We've just got a bunch of other things going on. There is Memorial Day Murph coming up, and I do plan to do that. It won't be a 5K, and I won't use my prosthesis. But instead of the run part of Murph, I'll row it, and then I'll do all the exercises, and then I'll row again to finish it.
He's done Murph for many years in honor of his best friend Mike Moyles, who passed away from brain cancer. And so he's always done that. The kids did CrossFit Kids for years. And so he's started doing that again.
That's awesome. And I know you mentioned to me, like in our initial conversation, you actually have to do like pistol squats, not just regular squats. And
I only got one leg.
Yeah, and it's like it's 100 of them, right? So it's 100. Tell us all the exercises.
So it's a normal Murph is run a mile, 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 squats, run a mile, all with a 20-pound vest on. I will be doing modifications of rowing, either a mile or 2,000. I haven't figured that part out yet. I'll do all the exercises. And the way I typically do it is I do 20 times through of 5 pull-ups, 10 push-ups, 15 squats, and just keep cycling through that for 20 times. And then I'll do the finishing row, and I won't wear a vest either. And I'll also use a bench to, so it'll be like a box squat essentially, just so I can rest if I need to. Doing 300 squats on one leg.
That's amazing.
That's a lot.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to do that on 2 legs, but I would next year for sure. So So obviously fitness, you're talking about it now, has been a huge part of your life and your identity. How does it feel to get back into that now? Obviously looking a little bit different, but
If
still being able to do these things.
so one of the I like to have a goal of something. So that's one of the reasons I started doing these 5Ks was I needed to walk more in my prosthesis. And so having a 5K that I'm registered for, I've paid for, uh, I have to actually walk in it to be ready to do it. So that it's a forcing function really. And that's the way all of these things I've done. Stop Soldier Suicide is another organization. I've done a couple of their challenges, like monthly challenges. I did a rowing challenge for them or with them, and I did a push-up challenge with them, just to raise money for that organization. The 5Ks, like I said, have been to drive me towards that. The other aspect of fitness, though, for me is the mental aspect. When I can't work out, I am mentally not as happy, I guess.
Yeah.
It helps me to clear my head. It just, it helps with everything, to feel healthier, to be healthier by being more active and being stronger. And so that's why I sign up for these things. I've already signed up for the 24 hours of booty, which is another cancer thing. And we'll go walk the booty loop, for that.
That's incredible.
He's in this gym 3 to 4 hours a day, every day.
That's awesome.
So
Not always working out.
no, but we have a
Yes.
massage chair
Yeah.
that he's got to get into to help recover those muscles.
It helps with the back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I was mentioning earlier, like the center of gravity being off.
Mm.
So the erector muscles on my left side, trying to keep me straight, are always firing. So they feel like a bone almost. They're so rock hard. And so getting in that massage chair and just pushing into that, or I'll roll around on a lacrosse ball on the floor too.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's like all that soft tissue work.
Yep.
Do you do a lot of core stuff in the gym too to help with that, or do you feel like it's just starting?
I do. That barbell right there is my ab roller,
Okay.
because I can't, normal people would have two knees to keep them from falling over with a narrow ab roller. So I use a wide bar and one knee, and I can do my ab wheels that way. So
That's really cool how you've been able to like adjust things so that you can continue getting strong and continue working out, which like I work out too. I know how important it is for not only physical but mental health. The other thing I wanted to ask for any and all of our listeners is just what a normal day looks like. Like walk us through like a normal day for you and what that looks like, especially, after surgery.
yeah. So being 2.5 years post-op, it has, my normal day has changed over and over as I've gotten stronger and better at different things. I get up in the morning and I go and as you know, we have 4 English bulldogs. So and 3 of them are females, and none of the 3 females
They don't
get
get along. They're all in different rooms.
They would make each other bleed, if they were in the same room. So we have to keep them separated. So I get up and I will take one of them out, and once I get through feeding each one of them one at a time, or there are 2, the male and 1 female, that stay together all the time. So it's only 3 groups instead of 4 groups, but I'll cycle through that, getting them fed, and then usually whatever project we're working on, because we always have projects here between raised garden beds, or
Graveling.
spreading gravel. I'm in the process of putting in some water lines on the front there to water the plants in the front. And of course they're half done most of my projects because it just takes me just to put together 5, 6, 8 garden beds, put them together and get them filled. Took me 6 months.
Both of us.
Yes,
Both of us.
yes.
We do have 3 kids, but they're not super helpful. And I get it. They're 20 something. They want to be doing 20 something stuff.
Yeah.
So everything that we've accomplished on this property, it's really been Stephen and I. And so he can't go like he used to, right? He can't do hour after hour. And so we have little spurts of things, and we'll work on a project, and then usually in the afternoon he will either have PT, or because he still goes to PT at Levine Cancer
Once a week.
and he will go to the hanger group to deal with prosthetics, or he has a VA appointment. And then in the afternoon from about 3 till probably 6 or 6:30 or 2:30 to 6, he's in the gym daily.
It's good you guys stay busy. I feel like that is, if you're just sitting around all day, it would wear more on you mentally. Like, so even if your projects take 6 months, it's okay.
Yeah.
What's one thing that people wouldn't realize after limb loss, maybe about daily life that is a struggle?
Everything is going to take longer.
Yeah.
Everything you do.
Yeah.
It's also going to take more energy. Whether you're using crutches or prosthesis, it's more energy. I've seen where somebody, I guess, figured out that if you're a hip amputation, you're using 180% of the energy of what a normal person would use just to walk.
Yeah.
So almost double.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, I also think too, like, you need to allow yourself to grieve. Grieve the life you had. Grieve the life you wanted.
You thought you would have?
Yeah, but then figure out the new normal.
Yeah.
Because we had a very different view of what our life was going to be like post-retirement.
Yeah.
And it has not at all turned out that way. We have a renovation going on in the dining room, and one of the gentlemen that was there to start that the other day was talking to me about our situation, and he said, that has to be devastating. You don't look devastated. And I said, we were, but what is that going to do for me right now? We're 2.5 years out of this, almost 3 years out of this, and we're still in the fight, but I cannot live my life as if it just happened. We have to find the joy and the new normal.
I think that's really good advice. Like, definitely grieving like the life that you had, the life you thought you were going to have, and then figuring out what that new life is now going to look like. Because through a lot of the interviews that I do, like, so many people say, like, the positivity, the hope, the wins that you could find is really what helps carry you through all the way through survivorship.
Yeah.
So kind of on that note, I know you guys had mentioned earlier that you traveled around a lot, and one thing that I found out about you guys after the stop was that you have a social media page that you had started to kind of keep everyone updated. So my 2 questions are, who were the people that supported you through all of this? And then talk to us a little bit about like how you're getting that message out to everyone.
So originally, and I kick myself now that I didn't think about it earlier, but because we lived 14 years overseas in different countries. We have various different military people and other local national countries of people that we know. And the quickest way to get the information to everybody was to put things out on my personal Facebook page with Stephen's permission. And I always titled it Life on 3 Legs, so that if you didn't want to hear about that, you could just keep scrolling on my personal page. And my page is locked down. It wasn't until recently that I was like, let me put this on a public page and let me start moving everything over. That way I don't have to open up my private page, but anyone that wants to read about the situation, or anyone that's going through this can see, because I give a very real account with real photos of the first day they set him up sitting on a bed, you know, the setbacks, what really happened. And I started doing this really for Stephen and my kids, because I knew that at some point maybe he was not going to remember much, you know, or things were going to be foggy. And I'm glad I did that, because he really thought that I didn't come to the hospital those first few days. He was so out of it that he just thought I wasn't there, and that my kids would have a record of what really happened with their dad. So that's how that started for me. All of our military friends pulled together with words of encouragement. Marines that served with Stephen or under Stephen were calling, checking on us. There were people that were driving from Louisiana into Texas to come see us. One of our friends from Germany who lived in Utah, he had business somewhere in Texas, and he flew out and came to the hospital. And, you know, people we weren't super close to were coming out of the woodwork. The brother of a guy I went to high school with, he's on my Facebook. He's an attorney in Texas. His wife is a nurse at the hospital. Her best friend happened to be the lead nurse in the recovery room for this surgery. She put me in touch with them. So all along the way, we had people that helped out, even if it was just talking us off a ledge to give us a little more information. Friends and family, Stephen's whole family was involved in finding out what was going on. His mother went with me and stayed with me through the amputation. His oldest sister flew in from Colorado to visit with Stephen and gave me a much needed break where I could go visit with my friend for a few days. So we had people that were invested in it, wanted to know about what was going on, keep us, you know, posted on it. Everyone's been very, very kind, and we've had some that have come to help. We're very independent people, so for us to ask for help, it's got to be really bad. And that's why some of my friends, when I finally asked for help, knew, okay, Erin never asks for help, so we're gonna step in and help, because it had to be something big.
With the social media page and the stories that you've been putting out, obviously was for kind of like friends and family initially, but have you had anyone with like a similar diagnosis or anything that's reached out or got connected from anyone with sarcoma through it?
So we have, but not through that Facebook page. And again, this is relatively new. There's less than 100 people on it. But Stephen's palliative care doctor from Levine Cancer Institute had a similar patient, and she asked if it was okay if she gave Stephen's information out and put us in touch with someone else who's newly diagnosed. And so that has been helpful, because we didn't have that. You know, Levine had told us when this first happened that this is so rare that Levine's at the Rare and Complex Center only sees about 1 every 2 years, whereas Dr. Lewis does 15 a year. And so there was just not that much information for when we were first diagnosed, or when he was first diagnosed. And so that, I think, was super helpful. You know, we've made contact with her and her family and just given her our information and our phone number, and they've been over to the house, and we just said, you call us anytime, because I know how scary this is. And it is scary. And, you know.
And I'm like, because sarcoma itself is already so rare, and then like your specific type of sarcoma, like you're not meeting someone else usually who has that. So I think that's really, well, as hard as it is, it's great for you guys to be there for her, because you've already walked the walk, went through it, and I'm sure you can give her a lot of advice and support moving forward. So that's great. What advice or encouragement would you give to someone else going through this, or maybe something you would say to that person?
I would say just remember it's a marathon. Just you're going to have ups and downs. You're going to have setbacks, but you've got to just continue working through it. You're going to have bad days. You're going to have days you don't even want to get out of bed, especially when you're going through chemo. There were days when I would just force white rice down my throat because I needed to eat something, and just had no appetite. But you just have to keep going. And then on the other side, you'll find your new normal. You'll find what works for you.
And I would say, don't let the handicap define who you are.
Yeah.
Because, you know, Stephen went through this. All military goes through this. What am I without the military, right? Especially when you've been in as long as he had. And you go through that, well, what am I? And then you move on to the next job, and now you've got cancer, and now you're a cancer survivor. Now you're an amputee. And he was not going to let this define who he was. And he wasn't going to let anybody tell him what he can or can't do.
Yeah, you guys are both incredibly physically and mentally strong, and that's awesome. So I think that's a good advice for anyone going through it, just to, like how you said before, just finding your new normal, finding your new identity, and then letting that drive you forward.
And understanding that your life is going to look different, but that doesn't mean it's bad.
Yeah.
You know, our kids, you know, have been very, very upset about the amputation. And I said, why not your dad? If someone has to get something, what would make him so special that he wouldn't get it? You know, you have to figure out how to make the life you've been given the best life you've been given with what you've got right now within the circumstances. And in our family, there's never been an option to fail. It's, you're going to keep going. We've always told the kids, it's not a matter of if someone punches you in the face. You're going to get punched in the face by life. It's what you do with it that makes who you are. And are you going to crumple, or are you going to get up? And that we've just always done that. And so we've been able to, I feel, teach the kids by showing them we're not going to give up until this thing is either gone completely or it takes him. We're going to keep going.
Well, thank you guys so much for sharing your story. Is there anything else that you guys hope that people take away from your story, or a message that you want to leave with any other sarcoma survivors?
We're open if anyone wants to reach out to us and get in touch with us.
You want to do a 5K with us? Come join us. We are the last ones. We
We'll
hold the
finish
record.
Love that. And we'll link their Facebook page, public page, everything when this goes out, so that if anyone does want to reach out, they can. But thank you guys so much for sharing your story. This is just one way that we create awareness for sarcoma being as rare as it is, and how many different types there are. So we appreciate everyone that's open to sharing your journey and just creating more hope for others. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.